There we go. There we go.
Fantastic. Can everyone hear me?
Yep. All good. Well, I can. Can we drop in the chat?
Perfect.
Everyone can just
Um,
let us know.
well, thank you for inviting me to this. My presentation will not be near as beautiful as JJ's, but hopefully I can rein it in all right. Mine should be a fairly decent leeway going in. Give me just a second. All right. So a little bit about myself. By trade, I'm a cyber operations planner. Most of my experience has been supporting U.S. government, some of the NATO partners, individual countries. Um, by trade, I'm typically the guy they bring into the room to walk in and tell leadership that's not going to work. We don't have the money, we don't have the resources, we don't have the people, or it's against the law. And so then we have to work around. All right, well, now that I've broken all of your plans, how do I fix it, and how do we get you where you need to be? All right. So for this, I'm going to try to paint this towards a picture of prepping like a small business. How do you look at this from the framework of a business trying to get themselves going, or they've been in operation and they're just looking for more support? Like, how do you get them going? The first thing that I tell everyone once you get there is, why do we care? Um, Understanding, like, yes, it's a computer networks. We rely on hopping on a computer to do our job is great, but whenever you can relate to them, like, hey, the reason you care about this is because your information is power. Whether you're a small business or a large business, a government or a nonprofit, the information that you have regarding your clients, regarding yourselves, regarding how you conduct your business, where you conduct business, how you conduct business, how often you conduct business, is all tangible things that can be sold to other entities, and it will be. Um, so I pulled this one up. It's from the FBI cyber division. The blue line indicates the number of complaints that they receive towards cyber crime. The red is the losses that they've received over the past 5 years. These are staggering numbers, and this is just in reference to the crimes that the FBI is aware of. So whenever you calculate into things that are outside the FBI's purview, when you're looking at the crime that's going on in like Southeast Asia or in Africa, where it's outside of their scope, there's a lot of things that they don't know. And in 2021, you're looking at 16 billion a day in potential loss, and it's not just money, intellectual property. It's ransomware being put on a computer and someone having to pay for it. These are all key figures that are going to affect any business and every business, not and to include the governments that are supporting them. Um, Here's a slide from the European Union. Um, Sorry, I have a click to talk microphone, so it always interferes with when I'm trying to say anything. Um, so it's important to understand the threat scape whenever you're talking to anyone. Um, this slide to me is important because, like, when you present it to somebody, especially when they're new to cyber, that's a lot. There's a lot of things that are presented there as possible cyber threats that can be that could potentially target an organization. So part of our obligation is to go through and really help shine a light on the key threats that an organization could be at risk of. Um, Styles of attacks that are utilized, social engineering, password attacks, phishing, malware. when you're looking at a small business, one of the primary attacks that they're going to receive are going to be phishing and spear phishing. They're new. They don't have all the processes out. They receive emails from anyone and everyone, the bank, partners, asking inquiries about what they're trying to do, where they put their money, where they send it. So we want to be able to walk them through and say, okay, these are the threats that you can receive on the spear phishing front. You need to understand whether or not they're going to be targeting your organization, whether or not they're going to be targeting your management, if they're going to be targeting your HR department, or if they're going to be targeting your financial department. As as you experience phishing as an organization, um, criminals are getting better, and they're getting better every year. Um, when you think about it, it's not just criminal organizations that are getting onto this. You have a lot of nation state actors that are also participating in this level of operation, and the level of sophistication is getting better and better every year. Um, One of the items that has been kicking around the states pretty hard has been anything revolving student loans. Um, so you've seen a lot of very well articulated emails coming from very um, well directed emails and URLs with very few grammar errors. And so it's been a real challenge to see these emails, to look at where they're coming from, and then try to identify where those threats are originating from. And thanks to the global industry, just because you see something that says, oh well, it's bouncing off a server here in Seattle. Yeah, if you follow along, it could be bouncing off of 6 or 7 other countries. And how do you manage that, especially as a small organization where you don't have those kind of resources? Um, the next issue that a lot of small businesses have, especially a lot of religious and nonprofit organizations, is having their websites taken over and or utilized for nefarious purposes. There was an organization a few years back that was targeting local churches in the DC area. They were compromising it. Then they were stealing data from local businesses, fishing it through the church websites, and then sending it forward to their own domains. As and with the church, the IT um, worker that was managing their networks was a retiree, and it was a part-time job, and so he was missing a lot of this information just because he didn't have the time to donate to the church in order to help them get through this. Um, and so that was one of the things that we kind of helped walk them through and get them up to speed and help try to automate a lot of the systems, such as Jay was talking about. The next largest thing, especially that we've been seeing on the business and housing front, is ransomware. I mean, we've all seen WannaCry and the subsequent attacks that have happened after that. Um, so that's always been a key concern for a lot of small businesses and medium businesses is if they are attacked by ransomware. Well, how did it happen? What are their steps? Should they pay the ransom? Should they try to just carry on? And so holding their hand, especially from my perspective, coming from the government sector and saying, hey, we're here to help you. We want to walk you through this process. These are the things that we can conduct to help ensure that your system is more secure, that your employees are better prepared and trained on how to um, identify scam emails or vulnerable websites. This is from CISA. It's a ransomware response checklist. I've used this one a few times, kind of send it out to some of our colleagues and participating in some of our exercises, just kind of walk people through like, hey, if you become a victim, take these steps. If you can't triage something, don't be afraid to reach out and get help. Uh, even as a small business where you have very few resources, there's a number of not only government but also nonprofit organizations that are more than willing to step in and at least provide you with guidance and help you take care of these situations. All right. So the big thing, especially coming from a leadership level down, is the understanding of the cyber terrain. When it comes to cyber, people are your top tier. They they are dependent on everything else that is going to happen on your network. So building out your relationships and understanding how, when, and where, and the motivations behind not only your bad actors, but also your people within the business, within the government, within your nonprofits, understanding where they're coming from, what their goals are, can really help you identify your shortcomings whenever you're building your network and help you kind of shore up or isolate systems that might be of a larger threat. The next level down is understanding your closed in cyber networks and capacities, understanding where your shortcomings are, where your dependencies are, where you're having to push resources out to a third party, and then understanding where those boundaries are going to be, where your limitations are going to put you behind. The information layer, where are you storing your critical asset information? Are you keeping them on site, or are you putting them out to a cloud? These are things that have to be considered. If you're pushing it out to a cloud, what are their policies and procedures whenever dealing with your information? Are you top of the bracket whenever it comes to an emergency? Are they going to ensure that your information will be protected first, or are you somewhere lower in the stack where as they're dealing with their top clients, they'll get to you? Your physical infrastructure. Honestly, a lot of times people forget about their physical infrastructure. So you'll show up and you'll see server racks that are a complete mess. Um, and this isn't just for businesses. Government agencies and communications equipment, they need to be maintained. They need to be updated. They need people dedicated to ensure that they're functioning at their best. And then the last bracket, if you're doing any operations in the Pacific, you need to understand that at times, if there is a volcanic eruption or an earthquake, how that might affect your operations. So as we dive in, you're looking at the tiers of your cyber administration. You have your people, your processes, and your technology. Each one of these has to be interwoven together. They have to communicate with one another. They have to have shared policies. Each bracket should have a say in how your operations are going. They should have a say in how you bring your operations back up to speed after an incident. And they should also be working together on how you manage those resources and ensure that your security department is receiving the proper funding that they need, that you're able to pay for the software that you need, that you're able to push your people through training that they need. And especially when it comes towards training, a lot of organizations, they see the big name certifications and they say, well, we need to get SANS, but SANS costs $5,000 per person. We as a small business, we just can't afford that. And being, in our shoes, we should be able to direct them towards free resources that can help get them to where they need to be, understanding wise. Be able to direct them towards NIST or CISA or DHS if possible. And walk them through, okay, so these are these are policies that are recommended by CISA, and with it, they'll tell you how to manage your systems. These are basic security trainings that we can take, and we can watch the video together. We can answer questions together. We can do the baseline, and then that way you can kind of direct your more you can direct more of your resources towards ensuring that your cyber and your SOC personnel are receiving the certifications that are going to make them more competitive for your organization. Um, for for policies, policies are they're not fun. They're labor intensive. They're never ending, and they uh, they don't always cover the topics that you always want them to. Um, but it is important that to at least establish a baseline. And as a small business looking at it, you want to keep it short and simple. Try to establish periodic reviews, and at times institute an exercise so that you can practice some of your policies. Be able to push out, email checks, make sure that people are following the company rules, that they're having the proper passwords, that they're securing their files properly, they're not just leaving them on their desktop, and any sensitive files are being properly isolated and secured. And then as businesses go forward, as you're starting out, you might not be able to afford the multi-factor. But it is important to have multiple ways for you to get your business secured, and there are cheaper ways for you to conduct a multi-factor without having to spend thousands of dollars. So if you can walk a customer through that and say like, hey, this is what we're working on. Here's an expensive option, a mid-tier option, and a cheap option. Here's the limitations with each. This is how we can walk through this. This is how we can at least establish a baseline security posture that allows for the multi-factor and keeps us at this level of security. The next level is your physical security. A lot of places tend to forget about the physical security needs of their organizations. I know this is really dry, so I'll try to indate you with a little story. I was working with an organization when I was living out in Germany. Um, they had been hacked, and so they brought us out there to conduct a little tabletop exercise. Um, so the exercise that I developed for them was they had a secured location where they like to conduct their in-house business meetings. It was an isolated room. It had one Wi-Fi spot that was encrypted, password protected, and that's where they would conduct their in-house meetings. And so I utilized that in my exercise. I said, okay, so you come in, you set up your laptop, you go to hop on the Wi-Fi, and you see that there's now two Wi-Fi connections within that space. You as the IT, what are your tasks? What should you be doing? And he said, all right, well, I would identify where the second signal is coming from and disconnect it. Okay, cool. All right, well, now what do you do? He's like, well, that was it. That's my job. I found the rogue device, took care of it. That's it. I was like, all right, well, we have a secure room where no one else is supposed to have access to it. Yet you have a rogue device found within that space, and you don't think that there should be an investigation. Okay, how did someone gain access? How long was it in there? What meetings had gone on while this device was within that facility? And after presenting that to him, walking through like, okay, well, let's say it's been in there a week, and you've had 3 finance meetings going through that room. How much information is potentially lost to this, bad actor? What happens if you've had a legal discussion within this space? How does that affect how your operations are going to go forward? And so walking through the team and helping them understand that it's not just, find device, turn off device, move forward. You have to pursue any cyber event as an inspector. How do you see the world, and how do you think that's going to affect your operations, not just now, but in 3 months, in 6 months? What if it was a competitor that was able to take this information, and then in your next bid, your competitor is able to swoop in using the information that they stole from you and underbid you by $10,000? Would you be able to compete with that? And so these are things that, try to bring up to them, and then walk them through the steps. Okay, if someone did gain access, what security features do you have on your building that prevent someone from coming in? All right, so you're in an office building with a security guard in the lobby. What are the steps that someone needs to get inside the building? Do they just need to walk in and say, hey, I have an appointment on the 3rd floor, and the security guard lets them in? Well, that's an ineffective security guard. If they are challenged, what are the limitations to this challenge? Are they going to call up to the office and say, hey, there's someone here saying that they have an appointment with you, is this correct? And that's leaps and bounds better. How does your facility, how do they take care of the trash? Is it just dumped in one receptacle and it's open to the public? Or does your office shred it and then it gets, burned in an incinerator down in the basement? That's even better. And then also having presented policies that if your personnel need to be reminded of anything, if they're curious about something, being able to reach up, grab a physical binder, and walk through it and say, okay, per our policy, 2020, this is what we should be doing. Or per the last draft, we should now be doing this. And these are all important things to consider whenever you're walking through security. All right. Looking at the NIST framework, you want to identify what you have. Have a complete, comprehensive list of your equipment, your cables, your Wi-Fi, your hotspots, anything and everything that is touching your network. You need to understand where it is, how long it's been there, and you should be able to identify if anything has gone missing or if anything has been added without your knowledge. Larger organizations tend to have a much harder time with this, finding laptops that have gone missing, or computer networks that have been added, or random cables that haven't been introduced to your building that you can't follow. So being able to have that list and say, this is where we're at, this is our network, this is where everything is, where it's supposed to be, this is how often everything's been updated, is vital to maintaining your security. The next is protect. You got to have everyone trained in order to do it. If you have a large number of turnover, are these new employees, are they trained to go through and not only patch your security procedures, but are they capable of dealing with anything if the network crashes while they're doing an update? These are all things that are going to have to take into account. And then as you're updating your systems, what day are you choosing to do this? Are you pushing patches on Monday, or are you trying to take care of them on Friday? Or is it solely a weekend gig? Detect, making sure that everyone, or not everyone, sorry, the security team is able to live monitor. Are you using an automated system, or are you going to have someone sitting there, and trying to watch anything and everything moving across your network? And then, how long are they going to be there? Because a person will only sit at a computer for so long before they start to get inundated and drift off. The next is a respond. Not only like how are you going to respond to that incident if you lose continuity with your network, what is your plan to resume operations? Are you looking at having to drop down to a quarter of operations or 50% operations, or are you going to move to an alternate site and be able to carry on full operations? These are things that need to be planned and identified and exercised. If it doesn't do anyone any good, if you have these policies and procedures in place and no one has ever practiced it, because you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. um, as they say in boxing, everyone has a plan until they get hit. So you need to be able to work through those policies and procedures and ensure that the steps that you've planned out are practical. And then lastly is recovery. If you're doing the standard of saving and keeping your systems isolated, your recovery will be rather fast. If you're not, there's companies still trying to repair and recover from WannaCry, and it's just because of how they set up their networks and how they had planned for the inevitable. For the inevitable. Right. For this one, it's less about what is a computer network, but the scope of it is what I'm trying to capture here. Uh, as a small business, you can say, all right, well, we just have two laptops. Oh, but we also have our cell phones, and we also have a Wi-Fi router, and oh well, we have the scanner too. We have the printer. All right, well, how are you accounting for all these things? How are they interconnected? Um, for securing personal devices, honestly, this one is more of a conversation in and of itself. Depending on what you do, where you travel, your threat scape can be very different. If you're traveling amongst the United States, you're probably looking at cyber criminals trying to looking for the lowest hanging fruit. If you're traveling in Eastern Europe, anything and everything from Western Europe is going to be spooked. So it's about where you're doing and where you're at. And if you go to Hong Kong, you hop on a network, someone is watching what you do. Even if it's encrypted, they're scooping it up and they will push it off and it'll be fed through the machine. So it's about perspective of where you're at and what you're doing and how you're operating. So my takeaway is, why is cybersecurity important? It's the basic of your business operations. If you're in the market to make money, you're in the market to provide a product, and if you are bleeding out because you're wasting your money on security practices because they look cool, you're going to lose out. If you're constantly being hacked, you're going to lose out because all of your information and data and money are on the table. You need to be able to identify a process and the procedures that work best for you and your company, um, and gear it and shape it towards what you need and what's important to your organization. When it comes to cyber, there is no silver bullet. There's no one size fits all. It's you have to be able to manage it and maintain it and create it the way that works for your organization, and be willing to be flexible. When it comes towards identifying the threats, the threats change all the time. Um, 10 years ago, 10 years ago, it was uncommon for a uh, commercial criminal to have access to a large collection of tools. If they did, they had to sit at home or sit wherever they are and handcraft their malware themselves, build it, deploy it, and try to collect those resources. And now you have malware as a service. The world we live in has vastly changed in the cyber domain. It's become easier to be a hacker, and it's becoming harder to be a defender. And when you have government organizations also playing the game and and taking advantage of not only the commercial tools but the nation state tools, it makes the threatscape much more challenging. And then lastly, um, cyber is not alone. You're not a castle, hidden in the mountains. You need to understand that anywhere, any problem that you're working on, chances are someone else has seen it. Someone else might have come up with a solution for it, or someone else is being hit with it right now. Being able to reach out to other cyber analysts and being able to talk with other SOCs and other planners and saying, hey, this is what was presented to us, or this is what we're seeing, or this is what we're being targeted with. Help me find solutions. What can we do? And as you can see in this, or in this meeting, is like there's tons of us all around the world, all working towards one goal, trying to make the internet safer. And you need to be able to feel confident enough to reach out and get those those resources. For this one right here, I just wanted to include a lot of free sources that are also government linked. I know a lot of cyber folks don't like leaning towards the government, but it's my bag, so I always gotta jostle them a little bit and say, hey, CISA offers training, they offer policy development, they offer tons of solutions. If you have a criminal complaint, you can reach out to the FBI or one of these other nation states and say, hey, this is what's happening. I need help. And if they can fall, and if it really helps if you're being hit with ransomware, it helps their algorithm because you can push it to them and they say, hey, you know what? There's been 30 other people hit with this, and we think we've isolated where they come from. When it comes towards the legal ramifications, the information that you provided might be able to take that cyber organization off the street and put them where they need to go. I also included some toolkits for a small business, so you can walk them through and say, hey, these are tools. These will help you write policies. These will help you develop your procedures. This is free assets that are available. And that's it. I went a lot faster than I wanted to. I apologize.
No
I guess I'll turn it back to Simon unless anyone has any questions for me.